Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we're getting into another Lego set. This is Lego set 75394, the Imperial Star Destroyer. Now for anybody who never had any of the older ones, I'm not sure the years they came out. I think one was in 2000 and maybe 6, another one was like 2014. I'm not really too sure exactly. I know I've seen before, but in general, there were two older ones. You've never had those before. This is your only chance. And really the only available chance you have to actually get one of these at an affordable price, at the market price, because otherwise all the other ones, older ones, they cost a lot more because they're no longer being made by a long time, over like a decade old. Now, this comes with 1,555 pieces. So the piece count is pretty good. Link's going to be in the description below. The price on this is $160. So for the piece count, for the price with current Lego, that's not bad. But I don't really like to necessarily go straight off just piece count. But nonetheless, this is said to have a lot more detail in it than the older ones, though it's a little bit smaller. But as I just mentioned, it's really your only option at this point. You get a 25th year anniversary exclusive minifigure, Kestis. He's from one of the video games I'm not really too familiar with because I've never played, but I know that it's one of the video games. You have Darth Vader, you have Commander Prodigy, and if I pronounce any of these wrong, I apologize. Imperial crew member, Imperial gunner, Imperial Navy trooper, and a stormtrooper. Now, the quantity of figures that you get, if I was to compare it to, say, we'll say the Ghost ship, which I reviewed on this channel and was the first major Star Wars ship I ever purchased, that had somewhere around the same part count or piece count. That was the same price, $160. Actually, the piece count was a little less, and it actually had less minifigures. That one had a total of, if you included Chopper, the little droid, then it had a total of 5 minifigures. So in those regards, this is actually considered pretty decent. But nonetheless, some people said they wish they had more stormtroopers, and I understand that because you want to be able to fill this up with stormtroopers. In addition to that, if they maybe had a separate loose pack, a kind of battle pack that had stormtroopers at an easy cost, then I would honestly say that that wouldn't be so bad either. I'd be fine with that. But as I understand right now, the current time I'm making this video, there's no way to get any additional stormtroopers for a cheap price. Looking at the box, you see we have, I'll test this figure. We have a little bit of details on the back of the box here. This showing how it opens fully. This showing that there's a carry handle. This right here showing that if you move this like lever forward and back, that the guns or the turrets will rotate. This shows it fully displayed open, along with some interior clips on top. There's nothing on this side of the box, and we are going to get into opening this box. Now, this box opens differently than the others, I believe. I'm not sure if it opens from the side, or normally Lego will have little prongs on the side where you'll open it at, but this doesn't seem to have that. So what I'm going to do is just take my trusty knife. I'm going to cut along the side of the tape. See if it opens up. Let's see what we're working with here. Definitely a heavy box and a little unwieldy when it comes to what's in it. So we've got here your package. Your instructions. Okay, so I'm not going to display all of them out because I know I'm not going to be able to fit them all into the camera, but we're going to just go over the number of bags. So we've got 1. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So you can see there's a lot of, in the 25th anniversary figures in here, there is a lot of bags. So this is definitely going to be a long build. Now, one thing I'm going to say is I'm not going to jump into any details right now. I'm going to put it together. Sometimes I do a lot of talking beforehand. Sorry, I got a little interrupted. So what I was saying is that I normally sometimes I do a big rant at the beginning before I even unbox everything. In this case right now, I'm just going to get into my big rant later on. But for now, you see all the pieces. We're just going to jump into the build, and it's going to take a while. So let's get into it.
So I just wanted to show this really quickly in the build process that this piece normally the regular way it goes is like this. And so this would come up and this moves upwards a little bit, and that's how it would be. And then this piece would come, I'm starting to do this one hand, would come and fit like that. And that's how you would get that kind of section like there. Now, what I was trying to do playing around with this is, I'm going to take that down. See if I can get this off with one hand. Okay. The other corresponding piece that would go on the other side, I took it, inverted it because it is essentially the same shape. But this way you'd have the studs on top. It didn't end up working the way I wanted because it does work. But the only problem is it's not a deep setting. I'm not going to put that on too tight, but just so you can see. It gives what I wanted. You could lift this up, is how it would go normally to kind of have that angle. But you could let that lay flat so it doesn't have that angle slightly going upwards to have the studs here. The only problem with that, let me grab one of the little guys that just had them. Okay, here we go. Is it's not deep enough because I thought I could make this bridge area at least be able to sit people. It's not deep enough. So when the next piece that comes on top of it is going to kind of lay something like this over it, he's not going to be able to. He's standing, but even if I sat him down, it's not going to be enough. Okay, I put him in a sitting position. You could see there that it's not enough to go that low. Now, if a person was to raise this up higher, yes, but then at that point, you also have to have it where this front piece is going to have a huge gap in it. So I was tempting that, but I want to just show you guys this in case that if you guys wanted to try to do something similar or utilize this in some way, you could. I mean, it could be used in some kind of way, maybe for storage of something, but that was something I was attempting to do, to put the studs up. That way you can sit things on it. Unfortunately, there's not enough room to really do anything, but it just gives you guys an option to play around with it because there are a couple of custom things that I was thinking about doing. While I'm in this video here, before we get to the final review, I just want to show one other custom thing I was planning on maybe doing is taking this piece out. This is a 4 stud length. I'm thinking about taking that out and then putting the 4 studs sideways and then building up. So if you had the studs here and the studs here, then building up on those 2 side studs, 1x2 brick coming up and 1x2 brick coming up there, getting rid of this piece because this is attached with studs that are coming out this way, and create almost like a little throne. But first I have to complete the build and see when I fold over the side panels, if somebody's sitting there, is going to interfere with that, or at the least me creating a throne, will that get in the way of that? Because even if not someone sitting there is going to be an issue, I want to at least be able to say when I do open it up, I can sit someone down in the throne that I'm going to make a little custom throne. So hopefully it's not in the way, but I got to finish the build first before I do that. So that's one custom thing. Another other custom thing I'm going to throw in here before we get to the review and the build is finishes. Here, this is just a possibility option. But when you lift this up here, you can see it's just enough room normally in the build that you can put some of the missiles from the shooters. If you were to take something like a 2-stud wide flat plate, you put it in there. So imagine those studs right there are covered up and it's in there, and you have this other layer of studs on the exterior. You can take this whole wall piece, have this coming up one stud outwards. So it now, instead of being 2 wide here, it would be 4 wide. Take this whole wall piece, make it come up on this extended piece coming outwards like this. It will come up, and then all you need to do now is bring it back over with another, like instead of this being a single piece, this would also be a 2-stud wide, and it will come back over to form like a roof piece as well. So it would be like that at the top. Let me put it at a better angle that you can see it and know what I'm talking about. So it would be like this. The wall would be coming up. The wall would be coming up this way. And then this would cross over like that. And then then you'd have to connect it at the top. But you would then essentially be able to have this be 4 studs wide, and then now you can put stuff in there like a person. So it's just the ideas that I'm playing with down the line, but I just wanted to show that in mid-build. Now I'm just going to continue with the build, and we're going to finish reviewing the ship as I finish the build.
All right, you guys, we're back with the finished build. And first, I just want to say disclaimer: my throat is a little raspy right now. I'm a little under the weather, so don't mind. By the time I finish building this, feeling a little under the weather. But we'll jump into this now. The first thing we're going to do, obviously, you can see the build here, and I think the build looks very nice. But the first thing we're going to actually do is jump into the figures before we get into the build. And I'm going to start with actually Cal Kestis, which most people normally wouldn't start with, but he's kind of the outlier of the set because he doesn't really go with the theme of the set. He is part of the 25th anniversary figures. Now, I don't know all that much about him. I know that he comes from um, the game The Fallen Order. I don't know too much on it other than that it's a saga that takes place roughly around the same time frame. Well, obviously Vader's inside the game, so roughly around the same time frame as maybe the original trilogy. So in that regards, this figure does kind of fit. This figure does fit somewhat with the time frame, and with the set. I mean, I'm sorry, because he actually takes place in that same time frame for the most part. So in that aspects, it's kind of cool that you get the figure with this if you wanted to, add to that story element. If you were familiar with playing the game, you can see the detailing on him here. Now, some people say he's supposed to come with a poncho and he's supposed to come with a little droid. I don't know much on it, so I can't really, have really much of a deep opinion on that in regard to the character. He does have a secondary face. Now, let's go through each figure. Some of the characters I'm going to have to reference the name from the box because I don't know off the top of my head other than the main characters. So starting with Darth Vader, you could see here is printing and it looks nice. And everyone for the most part says that this is the best Darth Vader version that there ever was. And they've never changed him since. So if he's not broke, don't fix it type of mentality. Now, I don't particularly have a Vader in my collection, so this is my first Vader, so I'm happy about that. Here you can see where you pull the helmet off, and he's got that two-piece, so you got the bottom piece, which is nice there. You can see his face. Detailing on the back for the damage of his head. Overall, he's a nice figure. The cape is like, it feels almost like a papery kind of fabric, so it's flexible but a little stiff. Never go wrong having a Darth Vader in your set. So next is Commander Prodigy. That would be this guy here. Now, what I like is the fact that you can see the detailing on him looks nice. Got the hat and all like that. I've never come across figures like this in any sets that I own, from that Imperial figures that would be on a ship, not troopers, obviously stormtroopers. There are, you can find them in some other sets, but as far as having just these kind of Imperial staff members for a ship, at least me personally, maybe unless you had older sets, you don't really find them in any current sets nowadays. So I think it's nice that they give you a good amount of them. This is the Imperial crew member. He's got the little headset. Obviously, because of the type of hat that they wear, they aren't going to have a double-sided face, and that's fine. They're not main characters anyway, but it's nice that you're able to have them. You see the suit looks nice. He even has all the way down to the pockets on his leg, like the cargo pants. So I think that looks really awesome. Let's see. Next, we have the Imperial Gunner. And I don't know, someone could put inside the comments. I don't know if Imperial Gunner refers to just, a trooper that uses a gun or a trooper that mans the guns of the ship. That I don't know. You see that under this case, it's a female, one-sided face, which is fine because, if you take the helmet off, you're not going to have um, something to cover up the other side. That's fine. The helmet's detail looks really nice. You can see the details on the clothes. It looks nice, and the cargo pants as well, but this time in black. And the details on the back. So I really like that you get this whole kind of crew set up. There's a lot of people, talk kind of negative about it. This is the Imperial Navy Trooper. And I don't know all these different positions. I just view them as just different Imperial, members, guards, whatever you want to call them. But, obviously they give you the detailed name on them. And for those who are very familiar with Star Wars would know that difference very well. But here you can see his outfit. He doesn't have any printing on the bottom of his leg. There goes the back. He has double printing for the face, but one is just a silent pose. The other one is a more excited face. Having a double face in terms of both sides, different alternate side face can be a positive. But if you take the guy's helmet off, then at that point he's got without hair, it becomes a little bit of an issue. So sometimes, you can see that as a positive or a negative. So far he's the only character with that. So if you took his helmet off, he's going to be the only one where you can't make his hat or helmet fall off. And here goes your basic stormtrooper. See the leg printing. I think he looks fine. I'm not that big of a stickler for the whole, the helmet. I don't know I'm not that deep of a collector to know all that kind of stuff and have a certain way about it. But I like the printing. It conveys that it's a stormtrooper, which is fine to me. One-sided head, it's a female, and that's fine. And obviously we knew by the time of the newer trilogy that the stormtroopers were not made up of clones. Now, the one thing I am going to say when it comes to the figures is that some people had the mentality that they wanted to get more stormtroopers, and my thoughts on that is simply, as I mentioned before at the beginning part of the video, that you're getting 7 figures. And regardless that one's a bonus figure, still getting 7 figures. That is what it is. Most sets in this price range, as I compared it to the Ghost, that has maybe about a little bit more than 100 pieces less. And it has 2 figures less. So a total of 5 figures for the same price. Now it's a little bit discounted. I think it goes for $151 now, but generally its intro price was $160, just like this. you really can't complain, to be honest with you, when you compare it to another set. Now, if you just said in general, I want more figures, and I get that everyone's going to want more figures in any set, in every set. You know what I mean? You could say the latest, not the Dark Falcon, but Millennium Falcon, but the last Millennium Falcon that was out, which is still currently out. You could have said, well, I want the original cast along with the newer cast from the original trilogy. But at a certain point, when you're comparing apples to apples, I think the amount of figures they give you is great. And in addition to that, if someone had to ask me, would I want to trade one of these other guys in these, other uniforms, these other Imperial guards and whatever you want to call them collectively, four, because there's four of them. If you want to trade them for an additional stormtrooper, I personally would say I wouldn't want that. And the reason why is because I would never know how to get extra of these guys in a set. They rarely make them. But if I'm not mistaken, if a person was to buy the Tantum 5 set with Darth Vader in it, now it's kind of pricey. It's like about $50 or something like that. But I believe you get like two stormtroopers. And even I have, and this is an older set, but the Armored Marauder from the Mandalorian set that came with three stormtroopers. So though they don't really have like say battle packs where you can get stormtroopers, and I think that's definitely a huge negative in regards to sets like this, that it could go to this, or sets like the Tantum 5 set, Tantum 5 boarding set with Darth Vader, where you'd want to add a battle pack of having stormtroopers. I agree that, or would say that they should have that in the mix, a battle pack for stormtroopers, so you can army build for stormtroopers. I think that's something they should have. But taking that aside, it's still easier to get more stormtroopers than it is to get these guys. At least currently, right now, I feel that that's the case. So I'm fine with them not giving us a stormtrooper if it was going to come at the cost of one of those figures. Like I said, will we all want an additional stormtrooper? Yes, but the fact that this set supplies you with 7 minifigures is honestly more than you're going to get from another $160 set. So I want to move all these guys to the side now. These are our extra pieces. And let's get into the build. Now, I think that this thing looks really nice. We're going to get into some of the negatives later on, but just talking about the details of it and some of the features up front, I think it looks really nice. I'm going to show this while I have it displayed like this now, this feature, because once I get into it, we're going to take all this off and really get into the details. Let me see how this thing goes in here. And I'm putting it in there wrong. And this is, okay, it's not hard to put in, but it's not fun either. So I believe you just push down. There you go. So there goes the feature on that. You have another one on the other side. It's nice. It's very conservative, so you wouldn't really even notice. And let me just quickly cover the feature of the cannons here, which you can see here. I have that rotating mechanism, which is nice, and it's very subtle, so you don't even really kind of notice this. Doesn't stand out. One thing that it was always said of those who reviewed this one versus the older sets is that this one has a lot more detail. Now, the size, if you're just looking at the size in itself, it does feel substantial. If I had to say, just in itself, it feels big. It's sturdy. Let's look at one of the other features while I display this is the handle. And you're able to lift this up here. And just taking a look at it, you can see it looks nice. It definitely has, look at that detail right there. And I actually forgot, this is where you could store these things. I just kept them inside the bag, and now I realize you could store them. So I thought about ways that a person could kind of expand on this whole structure here, but I realized because of this here, you would have to do a lot more work if you wanted to make this maybe 4 studs wide. But I'll get into little things like that in a bit, because every time I have a set, I like to look at ways that maybe I can customize or do a little extra to it. But the detail on it looks really nice on the ship. It's very sturdy. See, my side on this is a little bit stiff, so I might have to see about doing something to loosen it. But nonetheless, it looks amazing. And I also thought about this also is that this here, this design you're seeing here, getting a good look at the engines, but just this design here, when they designed this to fold in like that, they had to say to themselves a way to give you access to the interior in a way that it made it easy to have the access, like folding these flaps. But I've also thought about afterwards in hindsight that they also had to give you that angular shape. And the reason why I've noticed that is because at the end of when you finish building these panels, they display it in the instruction manual from the back so you can see that shape and let you know that to have that shape would have been almost impossible if this was built in a way where you just put the, like how some builds are, you put a top on top without the folding panels. You just put like a top panel on top. You then would have had to figure out a way to how to make it arc and how to make this arc upwards. If you didn't, then this would have probably been flat. And even if this was angled downwards, this would have been flat. So to make this angle to come to a point like that required this design. So it's interesting to realize they had to actually think about that when they were doing that, not just making these panels open up for the purpose of making it easier for you to access. So with that being said, we are going to, well, first, one thing I'm going to do too is I'm actually just going to measure this for you guys. So it is a little over 17 inches from this angle, but if you're looking at from the center angle to the very tip, it's about 19 inches. So it definitely is a pretty large ship. The details on it as well, like I said, the bridge looks really nice. Now, I did try to customize that, and I am going to, and that would have been, I'm sorry, inserted that clip in the little images I put of the build when I'm putting it together. But essentially, I tried to figure out a way to, which you'll see in that clip, but I'm just kind of reiterating now for what you would have seen before this section, of trying to expand on this where you could fit minifigures, but there was really kind of no way to do it because it's just not enough space. But I did show you a way where you can play around with it, where you can kind of make it a little more of a storage thing where you can turn these panels upside down and then you'll have the studs facing inwards. And then in that way, you can put stuff to stand on it. The figures are too tall to stand, but maybe other things you could put in there. Anyway, so here goes this panel here on its own. You can see the underside of it. It's constructed in a very sturdy way. So that part is nice. Like I said, my side here is a little stiff and this side is more loose. So I got to kind of figure that out, what's going on there. Okay, I pressed one of these down and it felt a little better. So I just had to compress it. Let's try to get into this. I know it's going to be a little bit hard. Okay, so I changed up the angle a little bit so we could try to get into this a little bit better. So here you have the bridge, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just totally take the camera off of the stand. Okay, so don't mind a little bit the shakiness, but here is the bridge, and it's okay in terms of the space that it has. Matter of fact, what I'm just going to do is run through everything first, and then I'm going to put it back on the stand just because it's going to be easier for me to point things out. So here's your general space. I'm sorry for the focusing. It's a little off. Things are looking. Okay, so the bridge here, it really doesn't have a lot of space. This is supposed to simulate the upper top portion up here, but in this small frame, and it really doesn't give you a lot of space, to be honest with you. And obviously people know that because this size is downsized from the size of the previous version. Now, also too, if you sit a figure here, they're not facing anything. He's just facing a wall because on this side is where there's the computer like that. It has that same computer little thing, but on that side. So you can't really do that. Now, can you put other figures and sit them up in other places? You kind of really can't. And the reason why is because, well, if you put his hands down, you can, and then you can sit them there. But at that point, too, where the issue comes into play is like I can move him over a little bit to be in front of the computer, but you can fit people, but it's very crammed when you do that. But you can fit them. If you wanted to put a couple of extra guys sitting down there, you'd have to put their hands down. So you could put a figure there, figure there. One figure here, however the distance you want him to be from the other guy, and the same over here. So you could have 4 guys sitting here if you want. So if you wanted, you could put all of your crew members here, and then say if you had extra stormtroopers, you could put them somewhere else in other places of it, or whatever the case is. But that's that. You can see the stickers here. Let's see if I can get this up so it can be seen a little bit. You can see the stickers over there. And you can see the stickers over there. I'm sorry that this is so unwieldy to kind of really maneuver. I want to try to get up into the details, but it's a little bit hard. So on this side, so here you have this little command station here with obviously a little computer, extra gun, a little mug, swivel chair. You have a little computer here. Now, I removed those little crates and I put them on the other side. And the reason that I did that is because I actually wanted to try to customize to see about maybe building a little room section here and kind of maybe building a wall coming from maybe from about this point out, come across and kind of like close out, move this chair maybe a little over here and close out a little room area here, maybe that I can form maybe a chairs or a bunks or make something there. So that's why I was experimenting with that. That's why I don't have those in that proper place. You can see there that we have the little screens. So there they go there, the little screens. And they look really nice. They give you definitely that sense of, things going on, people using the computers. Once again, sorry about all these different camera angles and me getting all up there, but it's hard for me to show you guys very well while still maneuvering things. Here you have a little computer on this side. You have a little canister with a little vial there. You have your little trank. Maybe that's to torture people. You could set up a little torture chair if you want to here. There was a little mouse droid. Obviously, there's computer panels on this side that's right here, just like there is over there. You can see this one shows, can't really see it that well because everything that's in the way, but it's R2D2 and C3PO, and it shows that they're looking for them. Now this side doesn't really have anything like that on it. It's just a couple of little kind of computer details on it. Once again, I apologize for trying to get around this thing with the camera. It's hard, but I really want to give you guys those kind of inside angles. Now this right here is just a kind of little hologram, I would imagine, of the Star Destroyer, and maybe that could be the Tantum 4, is it? Or I'm not sure, but just, they're flying around, they're chasing each other or something of that sort, wherever you want to think of it to be. These are those 2 little crates that I mentioned before, and I will pull them out. And like I said, by putting them over here in this corner, you essentially get them out of the way of giving yourself more space on that side, because it's essentially the same thing. So why not cram it into a corner that's not really going to be used as much, is my thought process, to free up room over there. But in this one, you have the binoculars, and I put the extra spare thermal detonator in there because I don't like to have spare pieces that are usable and not used, like say a spare gun or something like that. It just doesn't make sense. This one has 2 of the thermal detonators in it. No, it's one. I thought that there was oh, there it goes. Stuck to the top. So 2 thermal detonators in there. Okay. So, and as I said before, I had left these side here on this side because I just think it works better. Like I said, in terms of that space, and if you want to have someone on that side of this hologram, that's fine. But overall, that is the setup of the ship. Now, a few things that I was thinking about doing, and I'm going to probably try to do a video on this separately after the fact when I get a chance, is I actually want to modify this section here. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to test it out. And like I said, in another video, I'm going to record it and see how it comes out. If it's a success, then I'm going to post it. If not, then I mean, I may still post it anyway. But so this piece right here is a 2x4 flat plate. I'm going to pull it outwards and put it sideways so that the 4 wide is going like this. This piece has studs on it sticking outwards for this little computer. What I'm going to do is remove that type of that brick to make it just a regular 2-piece brick. I'm going to have to take a plate to replace that's going underneath here, since this is 4 studs long going into here to give it its support underneath there. I'm going to make this one come out wide, the 4 wide. I am going to then put maybe a 1x2 brick on each side, or maybe a 1x2 plate on each side to give armrest. I'm going to take this computer panel and put it on the armrest, and this is going to be a little throne for Darth Vader to sit on when the set is open like this. So he'll be able to sit down in that space, kind of like that. And then, like I said, on the shoulder part here, I may just put it as a plate high, so that way it's not interfering with the arms, but maybe just the computer panel, maybe 2 plates high, maybe not a full brick high, but you get the idea. And it'll be on the side here on each side, except one will have this computer panel there, so he can sit in his chair and fiddle with his buttons and things of that sort. So I'm going to do that. And it's not hard to do. And just me explaining it, I'm sure a lot of you guys can do it yourself at that point, and it will look nice. And it should be able to close without a problem, because the height of this is the height of these panels. So if the armrest part doesn't go higher than this, you should be, well, this piece here, then you should be fine in terms of that. So that's something that I'm going to attempt to do later on and turn that into his little throne area. Besides for that, I mentioned the change that I want to do over there. And then like I said before, I did think about a person could try to, I'm sorry, I had it zoomed in. I was talking about over here doing that change I said about the room. But then also, too, a person, like I said, could expand on this. And I thought about ways that a person could do that. But I realized the flaw of why that wouldn't work when I was contemplating that is because when you fold these panels in, now you have to make space from these panels. So that becomes a whole nother task in itself. But I do like trying to customize things. And I would advise people to try to do the same to make it work for you. Now, I just want to jump into the size of the ship, and I'm going to fold this up while I do that. A lot of people had complaints about the size of the ship, and I'm going to say this because some people who had purchased the ship had then said, oh, I feel it's great. I feel this and that. And some of them are like, I don't have an issue with the size of the ship. And here's my thoughts when it comes to that and the size of the ship and everything. I feel that this ship is the kind of ship that should be made with, the highest, and I'm not going to say the most expensive budget they can do, but generally speaking, if they're going to do any of their ships, whether it's the Millennium Falcon, the Ghost, anything like that, to be their most, not going to say the most expensive, but one of the upper price lines, maybe 180, maybe $200. I think it should be this ship. And I think this ship should be with this same amount of detail and larger, even if it came at a more expensive cost. If this ship was $200, and say if it was if this ship was, say, like this long, like just longer, and obviously that would make it wider just because its shape, and it had just, they really detailed it, put some dividers in the inside for some rooms, make sure it's really thought about. You have a little throne room, you have the bridge area, you have the general space, maybe a little bunk area. It doesn't have to be too big, but maybe with like 2 or 3 bunks in it that people can alternate for sleeping. But a very thought out, kind of setup, and put a lot of effort in it for, say, up to $200, which would be $40 more. I think that's something they could have done, but I think this is the ship to do that with. Um, you know, no other ship, I don't think, has the same importance for being huge and dynamic as this ship, because this is the ship that everyone thinks about. To be honest with you, we all know when it comes to like the big ship, the huge ship for Star Wars, the Imperial, the Empire. This is where we gravitate to. Now, anyone who's deep into Star Wars lore will know that there are other ships that are bigger. There was the Executor for Darth Vader, all these other kind of stuff. But generally speaking, general fans who don't know all the details and don't know everything about it, this is considered the biggest ship, and the only thing that comes bigger than this is the Death Star. So for that reason, this is definitely something that I think should have been even larger. Now, with that being said, the way they did it in itself for this version, I think is great in itself. I think the value is definitely there. I definitely think it's worth buying. As I said before, the link's going to be in the description. It's definitely worth purchasing because on the value point, you're getting more pieces than you would get in the Millennium Falcon, which right now is currently going for 135 on Amazon, but is often usually about, I think $170 was the price for a long time. Because I remember it was a little bit more expensive than the Ghost, and the Ghost is $160. This comes with more pieces than both of those sets, comes with more minifigures than both of those sets. So from a value standpoint, this ship is just better value than many of the ships out there. In addition to that, you're getting characters with it that, though they aren't considered like unique hero characters, in their own right, they're very rare, in my opinion, because I've never seen a set that you really get these guys with. So it gives you that sense. So, and they obviously complement the set. So I think in that regards, it is definitely worth it. So my final thoughts on this is definitely worth the purchase. Could it have been better? Yes, but for a more expensive price. For what it is and for the price that it is, I think is a great value. I definitely think it's worth purchasing. I think that everybody who doesn't have a Star Destroyer in their collection should definitely jump on this and put it into their collection, because I'm sure it'll be out for a while, but at some point or another, it won't be out. All sets in Lego retire, and this is your chance to get this now, especially with the 25th anniversary Cal Kestis if you want him. And I'm sure at some point he'll probably have his own little set. But, nonetheless, for right now, you get him with a set that I think is very appealing. One other thing I want to throw out there as a note also is that I think this set also can go hand in hand with, because certain sets complement other sets. This set could go hand in hand with the Tantive 5 set. Yes, granted, you're getting a repeat character with Vader, but other than him, you were able to kind of say that scene maybe represents the interior of this ship. And I can't remember. I think it was inside this ship that took place, and then they got into the Tantum 4 and took off. I don't remember exactly from Rogue One, but nonetheless, you could say that's the interior to the ship. Um, so that complements this. But also another set that I think can somewhat complement this, but not exactly, is there is an Ahsoka set that has Thrawn in it with Ezra and Ahsoka and Isbeth. I forget her full name. And because a lot of people thought that Thrawn was going to get his own Star Destroyer, and that didn't end up being the case, but they did release him as a figure separately, you could purchase this set. And, if you wanted to simulate, just take out Vader, put Thrawn in the place of this, take your Ghost Stormtrooper that they have there, I forget what they're called, and from that set, you can, if you want to mark up this Stormtrooper, you can. That's with this one. But nonetheless, you can kind of try to simulate that this is Thrawn's, I think it's called Chimera is the name of his Imperial Star Destroyer. And you could call it that. So in that aspect is a little bit of a stretch, but it's still something that you could do as a compliment if you want to do that. But anyway, you guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.